Hey everybody, welcome back to another daily drop here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and the topic of today's drop, college basketball rankings, particularly North Carolina, coming in at number 19 in the preseason Associated Press top 25. That's the topic here. Is that a fair ranking? Do you think that's a good spot for the Tar Heels? Is it too high? Is it too low? I will say this, that when I let some staff know in advance before the rankings came out, just so we could get prepared, that the Tar Heels are 19th, a couple of them were like, huh, really? They thought they would be higher. But we learned a year ago, well, we've learned this 40 years ago, that preseason rankings don't mean anything. They're fun, but they don't mean anything, because this time last year, the Tar Heels were the preseason number one team, and I don't need to remind anybody of this, but I'll go ahead and repeat it because it is relevant to now, because any preseason ranking is relevant from one year to the next, especially when they're wildly inaccurate, which was the case a year ago when the Tar Heels were preseason number one. Now, we'll sidebar for a moment and say that a lot of us agreed that that was probably the right spot for that team. That doesn't mean that we were idiots and got it completely wrong. I think a lot of the blame goes on the team. They didn't play well. They didn't shoot well. They didn't have a bench. They got worse offensively as the season went on. We've been through all that stuff. But in the grand scheme of things, we really were wrong. Anybody that thought they were that good a year ago, because they became the first team to be rated preseason number one in the after the, I guess this tournament started expanding in the 70s when that large team started getting in. The first preseason number one to not make the NCAA tournament. They went 20-13, and the rest is history. So right now at number 19, is this a fair spot for the Tar Heels? Duke and Miami are ahead. Miami's at 13, coming off a Final Four run, lost some key players, but they got Matthew Cleveland from Florida State, who, by the way, beat Miami in Coral Gables on a buzzer shot last year. So that's an interesting part of the way things are today, with a guy going from one rival school to another. Duke, I think, is number 2. Kansas is number 1. You got Purdue, Michigan State up there. So I say 19, given the fact that the Tar Heels were a colossal disappointment a year ago, and that always plays a little bit of a role into how a team is perceived at the start of the next season, and the fact that they went to the transfer portal and got guys that weren't stars, but were pretty good players for the most part, certainly older, more experienced players. When you're close to the program, like I am and some of my colleagues in the media, and like you fans are, when you think about it on an almost daily basis, we see the positives of a Cormac Ryan and a Jalen Withers and a Harrison Ingram a lot more than some voter in Sacramento. So they're not going to think about those additions. They're going to think, oh, gosh, 7 guys left. They failed to make the tournament last year. Armando Bacot's a nice player, but RJ Davis is a nice player, but that's what a lot of the voters are thinking, which is why I actually think 19 is a great spot for this team. It's a great spot because they're respected enough to be in the poll, and they are North Carolina. So North Carolina should always be in the poll. In fact, I look back at the previous rankings, going back 10 years, 12 years or so, where Carolina was in the preseason top 25 polls. And guess what? 2 years ago, Hubert's first year, they were also 19th. Now, that team wobbled around for about 4 months, and then found itself and had a 15-point lead at halftime in the national championship game. If number 19 means anything, and past history has any connection to now, I think most of you watching would take a 15-point lead at halftime in the national championship game this coming season. So it still doesn't mean a whole lot. But for fun, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I can pretty much recite them. Most of the preseason rankings were single digit. There was a 12, I think, in 2012, 13 that year. But they've generally been, 2015, 16, they were number 1. The following year, they were number 6, I believe. They didn't win the national championship that year, even though they had most of the same guys back. Kind of weird. They got to the title game the year before. Kind of a weird ranking. They were number 6, number 8 in that range in the latter part of the 2000 teens. So 19 right now, I think is a good spot. It's a good spot because we still don't really know what this team is. We like to think we know what they are. I can envision what this club's going to look like. We've seen a few samples about them moving faster, pushing tempo. But is Cormac Ryan going to be a good shooter from the perimeter this year? Or is it going to be like Caleb Love was a year ago and just really struggle all season? What does Jalen Withers give them? Is he just a bouncy dude, or is he a bouncy dude that can produce and also defend? What do they get from Paxson Wojcik? Is he a guy that can handle playing with this kind of talent and also night in, night out against the kind of schedule they're going to play as opposed to an Ivy League schedule? How about James Okonkwo? Does he give them anything off the bench? Or is it Zayden Hyde, the true freshman, maybe that comes off the bench to help? What about Harrison Ingram? He had the same numbers as a sophomore at Stanford that he had as a freshman at Stanford. Why didn't the numbers go up? We like what we see. He's got vision. He can handle the ball. He's an assist guy. He's a decent rebound guy. He's a little bit of a scoring guy, but nothing off the charts. He says that much more of his game is going to be on display now at North Carolina because playing with better players and the approach that they play with is going to elevate his game and give him more opportunities to produce. So if that's the case, then I think 19 might be a bit low. If Cormac Ryan's a player I think he's going to be, 19 might ultimately be a bit low. If Elliot Cadeau handles the point guard duties in whatever role he has, either coming off the bench, which I'm told very likely could be the case, at least for a while, or coming in or starting games at the point with RJ moving over to the 2. If he can handle the stage and handle the pressure, also handle playing with guys that are a lot older than him. There are guys in this team that were going into college when Elliot was still in middle school. So that stuff takes time. And I understand with all those question marks why UNC would be 19th. I think Hubert is also another question mark. I've talked to a lot of people in the media outside of the UNC coverage zone. And one of the first questions they ask isn't about RJ. It's not about Armando. It's about Hubert. So a lot of people still wonder if he can get it done at North Carolina. So 19 is a good spot. There's some respect there. They know that there's some talent there. But it's also not so high where people are kind of over-evaluating this team, giving them more than what they should get. Last year's club at number 1, I think a lot of us were fooled by the run they made. And we put so much weight on that we kind of ignored the other 4 months. And that's why a lot of us thought that that was the right place to be. But they were also selling it themselves. I had 3 players tell me championship or bust. They're not saying that stuff now. They're not saying anything or bust now. They're saying all the right things. I think a lot of lessons were learned. So, in my opinion, they have a much better chance at moving up from 19, finishing with, if you're 19th, I guess that puts you at a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. So, in my book, I think that they will end up higher than a 5 seed, which means they would be higher than the 19th seeded team of the NCAA tournament. I think the chances are much greater they do that than that they drop and end up with what would be a lower seed, like 6 or lower. That's my take on it right now. Of course, once they start playing games, we will really get a much better idea. And even then, I think with this club, it might take till they get through Kentucky in Atlanta. They get through the Oklahoma game in Charlotte, and they get ready to play conference games for good on January 2nd when they go to Pittsburgh. Maybe then we'll really know if 19 makes sense or not. And they may have a few losses by then as well, but we'll be able to tell by how they play, especially in those losses. If they lose, why they lose. So all that stuff's interesting. Rankings are for fun. I don't give them a whole lot of credence, but it's there. So we're going to talk about it, and we're going to post it on the site, and there is a little bit of newsiness to it. So we're grabbing onto it enough to have a little bit of fun. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think 19 is fair? Should they be higher? If so, tell me where you think they should be. If they should be lower, tell me where you think they should be. Let's go ahead and respond on Twitter. Let's respond on our Facebook page. And of course, on our website, TarHeelIllustrated.com. And I guarantee you that the discussions on the premium basketball board, the Four Corners board, are going to be really good about this. And you can be a part of that community for just $8.33 a month with a 1-year subscription to THI. Let me know what you guys think. Is 19 fair? If not, give me a number. Throw it out there. Let's have some fun with this, because that's really all it is fun. If you like the ranking, or if you think they're going to be better, go ahead and click like on this video. Make sure your Carolina Tar Heel friends know that we exist, not just our channel, but our website as well. Subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell as well, so you get updates every time we post a video, which is often. I'm AJ, and I'll see you tomorrow.